I was at the mall looking for a new pair of sneakers when I saw my cousin Noah walking out of the Apple store, holding a fresh bag with that signature white box. I hadn't seen him since Christmas, so I called out, "Hey man, when's the family trip happening? I've been waiting on an update for weeks." He blinked, tilted his head slightly, then gave me a half smile like I'd just told a bad joke. "Wait, you don't know?" he asked. "We went last month. It was awesome." I just stared at him. "What do you mean, you went last month?" He looked around, clearly realizing something was off. "Yeah, Turks and Caicos. Mid-June. It was me, Aunt Rachel, Uncle Gary, your sister, your mom, everyone. Didn't they tell you?" I swear, for a full 5 seconds, my brain stopped working. Because I'd paid $4,000 toward that vacation. And nobody had told me a thing. That's when I pulled out my phone. Before I go deeper, I should back up and explain how I got here, because this whole mess didn't just start at the mall. My name's Austin, I'm 27, and I work as a freelance UX designer. It's a decent gig, pays the bills, lets me work from home or wherever I want. I live alone in a small but nice apartment outside San Diego. I'm not rich, but I'm careful with my money. I budget, I track my expenses, I save. So when my mom called me back in March and said the extended family was planning a once-in-a-decade vacation to Turks and Caicos, I hesitated. She said everyone would be pitching in, that it would be a big bonding experience, and that my cousins were excited to spend time together again. I hadn't seen most of them in years. At first, I told her I couldn't afford to just drop thousands on a vacation, especially when I had no idea what the schedule would look like or if I'd have deadlines. She said not to worry, that the Airbnb had to be booked fast because it was a group rate, and everything else would fall into place. "Just send your share now, and we'll handle the details," she said. "It's just a deposit. We'll loop you in once the planning starts." I should have asked more questions. I should have gotten something in writing. But this was my mom. And despite our rocky past, which I'll get into, I wanted to believe this was her trying to reconnect, trying to include me. So I Venmo'd her $4,000. Now, growing up, our family was always a little lopsided. I was the oldest of 3. My younger sister, Brooke, is 25, and our brother Caleb is 21. Caleb's still in college, kind of doing his own thing. But Brooke's the golden child. Always has been. She was the cheerleader, the straight-A student, the one who knew how to smile at the right people and say the right things. Meanwhile, I was the awkward kid who preferred books and computers. I wasn't rebellious or anything, just quiet, different. My parents, especially my mom, always made it clear Brooke was the social glue of the family. I was the reliable one, the helper, the one who got asked to fix the Wi-Fi or drive grandma to the doctor. And somehow, that helpful role stuck even after I moved out. Brooke lives 2 blocks away from my parents now, still riding the wave of that favored status. She works for a small marketing firm that my uncle owns, so it's not exactly like she climbed a mountain to get where she is. But you'd think she'd solved world hunger with the way my mom talks about her. Every holiday, every phone call, every text starts with something like, "Brooke got promoted," or "Brooke's planning the baby shower for your cousin," or "Brooke's doing something wonderful again. Isn't that amazing?" I learned to tune it out after a while. It wasn't worth arguing. But this vacation, this was supposed to be different. This was supposed to be a family event. Equal footing. Everyone together. Except apparently, everyone was together, just without me. Back at the mall, I stood there frozen, staring at my screen like it could somehow explain what Noah just said. I opened the family group chat. Scrolled up. Nothing. A couple birthday posts. Some pictures from Easter brunch. A meme Brooke sent about air fryers. No mention of a trip. No photos. No planning. No return dates. No, "Hey, we're here," or "Can't wait to see you." Nothing. Then I realized I'd been moved to replies only. I couldn't even send a message. I asked Noah, "You're sure they all went?" My mom. "Brooke? Everyone." He nodded. "Yeah, man. I mean, I assumed you were busy or something. Your mom said you couldn't make it last minute." She said I couldn't make it? On the drive home, my head was spinning. I kept replaying the timeline. March, the deposit. April, silence. May, I texted Mom to ask if there were updates, and she replied, "Still figuring things out. Nothing confirmed yet." Then in early June, she went quiet. Said she was helping Brooke with a project and would call me back. She never did. I'd been buried in client work at the time, and I didn't think much of it. Figured the trip had been delayed or something fell through. But now it was clear. They'd planned the whole thing behind my back. Paid for it, with my money. And I'd been cut out. I called my mom that evening. She didn't pick up. I texted, "Hey, just ran into Noah?" He said the trip already happened. No reply. A full hour later, I got a response. "Can we talk tomorrow? I'm about to head out." No apology. No explanation. Just a casual deflection, like she'd forgotten to water the plants or missed a dentist appointment. My hands were shaking. I didn't know if I was more angry or hurt. And beneath all of it was this sick feeling in my gut, like I'd been made into a fool by the people who were supposed to care about me most. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, remembering every moment that now felt like a setup. The rushed payment, the vague updates, the radio silence. And suddenly, I couldn't stop asking questions. Was this Brooke's idea? Did my mom lie to cover for her? Did everyone just go along with it? Did they laugh about it? Did they sit on a beach drinking cocktails, knowing full well I'd paid for a trip I wasn't even invited to? And if so, why? I started digging. Social media, old texts, hidden posts. I wasn't prepared for what I'd find next. Because it turns out, the truth was a whole lot worse than I thought. And I was going to make sure they regretted every single part of it. The next morning, I woke up with that restless, burning feeling in my chest, the kind that doesn't let you breathe right. I hadn't really slept. My mind had been racing all night, going over conversations, timelines, tone shifts. Every memory was now colored by suspicion. I kept wondering when it had really started, the part where I became disposable. At 9:17 a.m., my phone finally rang. It was Mom. "Austin," she said, her voice just a little too calm, like she was trying to keep the upper hand in a conversation she already knew would go badly. "I saw your text." "Yeah," I said flatly. "So, Turks and Caicos happen already?" Everyone went. She sighed, that long breath she always used when she was about to blame me for something. "I didn't want you to feel left out, honey. That's why I didn't say anything." I blinked. "You didn't want me to feel left out, so you left me out? What are you even saying right now?" "It's not that simple," she said quickly. "Plans changed. Things got booked faster than we thought. Brooke took charge of the planning, and we had to make some decisions. I assumed you were too busy with work anyway. You always say you're swamped. I gave you $4,000. And we used it toward the Airbnb," she said, like that somehow justified everything. "You're still part of it." Technically. Technically. I repeated, stunned. "So I helped pay for a vacation I wasn't even invited to, and you're just okay with that?" There was a pause. "We didn't think you'd mind," she said softly. "Brooke said you wouldn't care." Of course she did. There it was. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Brooke said I wouldn't care. That's when the dots started connecting in my head, like little landmines going off one by one. Brooke's name kept popping up. Brooke took charge. Brooke said this. Brooke decided that. And Mom just went along with it, like she always did. Suddenly, I realized this wasn't just a miscommunication or some rushed decision. It was a deliberate choice. A hierarchy I'd always known existed but never fully acknowledged. And the worst part? They didn't even try to lie convincingly. I ended the call before I said something I'd regret. I needed answers, real ones. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I logged into Facebook. My family isn't super active on social media, but Brooke? She lives for it. I scrolled through her posts, her tagged photos, her stories. Most were locked to close friends, but I found a few things she'd slipped up on. A boomerang of champagne glasses clinking on a yacht. A blurry sunset shot over turquoise water. A bikini mirror selfie captioned Valkyrie mode. Nothing explicitly said Turks and Caicos, but anyone with eyes could see it. Then I checked Noah's page. He'd tagged the location. Bingo. I started reverse engineering the timeline. They left around June 12th. The photos picked up around the 13th and stopped on the 19th, 7 days. Full week. Brooke had even posted a quote the day they returned. "Family, where life begins and love never ends." That one made me laugh out loud. The irony could have powered a city block. But I wasn't just angry. I was gutted. That quote, that trip, it was all performative. A show for themselves and their friends. And I wasn't just excluded. I was used. Financially, emotionally, and worst of all, without the decency of a heads up. Still, there was a part of me, maybe the naive part, that needed to know the full scope. Was it just Mom and Brooke? Or was the rest of the family in on it too? So I texted my uncle, my dad's younger brother, Uncle Mark. He was always the more grounded one. Stayed out of drama. Hey, I wrote. We haven't talked in a while, but I heard you guys went on the trip already. Did you know I wasn't invited? He replied 3 minutes later. What? I thought you canceled. Your mom said you had a deadline and couldn't go. I even asked about you when we got there. She said you sent the money as a favor. Hey, favor. I stared at the screen. My heart was pounding in my ears. My mom had lied to everyone. Told them I backed out. Told them I offered the money as a gesture. Like I was some generous outsider funding their bonding experience. And that's when the betrayal really landed. Not just being left out. Not just the money. But being reframed in everyone's mind as someone who just didn't care. Who gave his spot away like it was nothing. They'd erased me and rewritten the story. I spent the rest of that day alternating between pacing my apartment and typing up every detail I could remember. Every interaction. Every slip-up. I was building a mental case file. Not because I was planning revenge, not yet. But because I needed the truth laid out in front of me. I needed to see the pattern. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't the first time. This wasn't even the 10th. Growing up, I'd been sidelined in subtle ways for years. Birthday parties where my cake was forgotten. Christmas mornings where Brooke got the newest iPhone and I got socks. Group photos where I was the one taking the picture. College graduation. Brooke got a dinner and a custom cake. I got a text that said, "Proud of you, kiddo." I'd spent most of my life telling myself it wasn't intentional. That I was just quieter, more reserved. That they loved me, just differently. But now I knew better. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was favoritism with teeth. Later that week, I tried calling Brooke. She didn't answer. Instead, I got a text, "Hey, crazy busy right now. Can we catch up later?" I replied, "I know about the trip. You all went. With my money." No response. The next day, I called my dad. Now, my parents are divorced, have been since I was 14. Dad and I aren't super close, but we keep in touch. He moved to Arizona after the divorce and didn't usually get involved in Mom's family events. He answered on the second ring. "Austin, what's up? I just found out the family went to Turks and Caicos last month," I said, skipping the pleasantries. There was a pause. "Yeah, I heard something about that. Your mom said you were all going." "They went without me." He was silent again. "You're kidding." "Nope. I paid $4,000. They left me out. Lied to everyone. Said I couldn't go." His voice dropped. "Austin, I'm so sorry." That was the moment I realized how rare those words were from anyone in my family. "I'm so sorry." Not an excuse. Not a dismissal. Just acknowledgement. And it hit harder than I expected. "They've always done this," I said. "I just never saw it for what it was." He sighed. "Your mom's always had blind spots. Especially when it comes to Brooke." I didn't want to say anything, but I noticed it when we were still together. I thought maybe it would change over time. It didn't. "I can see that." He paused, then added, "You didn't deserve that. You've always been a good kid, Austin. Better than most." I didn't cry, but something in my chest cracked open a little. That tiny bit of validation. That was more than I'd gotten from my mom in years. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a while. Then I opened a new document on my laptop and started writing. Not just a journal. Not just a list. I was building a plan. Because I wasn't going to be the quiet helper anymore. And whether they saw it coming or not, this time, I was going to make sure the story ended differently. I didn't talk to my mom again for almost 2 weeks after that. It wasn't some conscious act of revenge. I just couldn't. Every time I saw her name on my phone screen, or got a text notification from her that said something bland and hollow like, "Hope work is going well," my stomach tightened. It wasn't even anger at that point. It was fatigue. I was emotionally spent. You ever feel so used that your brain stops trying to rationalize it? That's where I was. Done pretending it was a misunderstanding. Done replaying her words to see if maybe I was the one being too sensitive. Deep down, I knew I wasn't. But despite how drained I felt, the silence gave me something I hadn't had in a long time. Space. Mental clarity. No more surprise guilt trips. No more half-truths from Brooke. No more being treated like an afterthought in my own family. And in that silence, I started to hear something I hadn't heard in a long time, my own voice. I won't lie and say I bounced back overnight. The first few days after everything came to light were heavy. I was embarrassed. I stopped checking the family group chat entirely. I even deactivated my Facebook for a bit, because seeing their smiling vacation photos made me physically sick. Every picture felt like a postcard from a world I'd been deliberately exiled from. one I helped fund. I couldn't stop thinking about that detail. That I paid for them to laugh and drink and toast each other under the Caribbean sun while I was stuck in my apartment, eating microwave pasta and wondering when they'd finally loop me in. But when you hit that low, the kind where you can't even pretend anymore, something strange happens. You stop waiting for someone else to save you. The first thing I did was look at my finances. I opened my budgeting app and stared at the minus $4,000 transaction from March. It was a painful red line across an otherwise decent month. I'd been saving to upgrade my home office. New chair, better webcam, maybe even dual monitors, but that money had vanished without a trace. And it hit me that I had nothing to show for it. Not a single grain of sand between my toes. Not even a keychain. That same night, I opened LinkedIn and quietly updated my freelance portfolio. I hadn't refreshed it in over a year. My UX design work had always been steady, mostly word-of-mouth clients, small businesses, app developers, the occasional startup, but I realized I'd been coasting. Partly out of comfort, but partly because I'd never really believed I could take it further. I wasn't flashy like Brooke, I didn't have connections, and I wasn't someone who naturally networked. Still, something in me clicked. I spent the next 3 nights reworking my case studies, adding video walkthroughs, and even recording a short intro pitch for my website. I reached out to past clients for testimonials and published a series of design breakdowns on Medium. I wasn't sure what would come of it, but it felt good to finally invest in myself instead of in people who would never return the favor. Then something unexpected happened. A startup founder in San Francisco found one of my Medium articles and emailed me asking for a consult. He was launching a productivity app and loved the way I explained user flow psychology. We jumped on a call the next day. 2 weeks later, I signed a $9,000 contract to design their entire onboarding experience. I won't sugarcoat it. I stared at that signed contract like it was a hallucination. Not because I didn't think I was worth it, but because for the first time, someone else did. Someone I'd never met looked at my work and said, "Yeah, this guy knows what he's doing." That contract became a turning point. The confidence boost it gave me was more valuable than the check. I started waking up earlier, taking real care in how I presented myself, not just to clients, but to myself. I replaced my wobbly desk chair with a Herman Miller I'd been eyeing for years. Got a better webcam. Even added a second monitor after all. I stopped waiting for someday and started rebuilding the life I thought I wasn't allowed to have. But success didn't erase the pain. It just gave me a ladder out of it. One morning, maybe 3 weeks into this new rhythm, I got a message from my cousin Grace, Noah's younger sister. She was 23, just out of college, and one of the few family members I'd always gotten along with. Her message just said, "I just found out everything. I'm so sorry." I stared at it, unsure what everything meant. I replied, "What do you mean?" She sent a voice message. "I had lunch with Brooke last weekend," she said. She was bragging about how she streamlined the vacation planning. I asked what happened with you, and she kind of smirked and said, "Austin's too dramatic. He would have complained about everything anyway." There was a pause. Then Grace added, "She said you gave up your spot because you were too busy with work, that you practically begged to be left out." I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't believe it, I did, but because hearing it in someone else's voice made it real in a new way. Grace sent one more message. "I just wanted to say I think what they did was disgusting. And if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." For real. That meant more than she probably realized. She wasn't part of the core clique. She'd never been wrapped up in the family drama the way Brooke and Mom were. But she'd also never said anything before. The fact that she was now, even quietly, made me feel like maybe I wasn't crazy for being hurt. I thanked her, then went for a walk. As I wandered my neighborhood, I realized something important. I'd spent most of my life shrinking myself to keep the peace. Skipping family events to avoid confrontation. Keeping my mouth shut when someone made a passive-aggressive remark. Playing the mature one. The chill one. The helper. The fixer. The guy who didn't make waves. But being quiet hadn't protected me. It had only made me easier to ignore. That walk ended up being 3 miles long. And by the time I got back home, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to send a long, emotional message to my mom or Brooke. I wasn't going to beg for an apology or demand a refund. I wasn't even going to tell them I was hurt. Because they knew. Deep down they knew. They just didn't care. But that didn't mean I had to keep pretending. So I took my first real step towards setting boundaries. I muted the family group chat. Archived it. Then I opened my contacts and created a new group, people who actually show up. So far, it had 4 names: my cousin Grace, my friend Nate, my dad, and my college roommate Jalen. People who saw me, who reached out, who didn't just take. It was small, but it was real, and it was mine. Over the next few weeks, I leaned into that group. Grace and I started texting more. Nate invited me to a weekend cabin trip with his friends. A guy's reset weekend, he called it. I almost said no, but something told me to go. And I'm glad I did. Because sitting around a fire pit with people who actually wanted me there reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I was more than the role my family cast me in. I was smart. I was kind. I was building something, not just a career, but a life. One night, Jalen and I were on a Discord call catching up. He's one of those brutally honest types who doesn't sugarcoat anything. Dude, he said mid-conversation, you sound different. Different how? Like, free. I sat with that for a moment. He was right. I did feel free. But freedom has a price. And I was starting to realize my next move would change everything. Because while I'd found strength in my own corner of the world, I still hadn't confronted the people who hurt me. I hadn't told them I knew about the lies, about the manipulation, about how far they were willing to go to keep me in the dark. And I wasn't planning to yell or scream when the time came. I had something better in mind. Something quiet. Something permanent. I didn't want revenge to feel petty. I didn't want to lash out or go on some rant or try to win a family argument that would just get twisted later. Because that's what always happened. You raise your voice once, and suddenly you're the ungrateful one, the dramatic one, the one who never lets things go. And the others? They get to play innocent. They shake their heads and say, I don't know why Austin's so angry all the time. But I wasn't angry all the time. I was angry now, and rightfully so. I'd paid $4,000 for a fantasy that didn't include me. I'd been lied to, deliberately. Used like a silent donor to a family cause I wasn't even invited to. And the worst part? They'd done it like it was normal. Like it was just another Tuesday. So no, I didn't want to scream. I wanted them to feel the slow burn of realizing they'd pushed the wrong person too far. And the timing, as fate would have it, couldn't have been better. It all started with a wedding. In mid-July, I got a paper invitation in the mail. A small, cream-colored envelope with elegant cursive across the front, Mr. Austin Myers. I opened it with a sinking feeling in my gut. It was for Brooke. She was getting married. The wedding was set for late September at some vineyard 2 hours up the coast. Black tie, formal dinner, dance floor, family-only speeches. It said on the back of the RSVP card, which made me snort. I wondered which version of family they meant. But even more interesting than the invitation was the fact that Brooke hadn't told me directly. No call, no text, no hey, I'm engaged. No announcement in the group chat. Not that I'd seen one, since I'd muted the whole thing. They wanted me there, but they didn't want me involved. And that, right there, was my opening. Because here's the thing about weddings in my family. They are productions. Not just emotionally, but financially. Everyone wants to be seen as generous, supportive, essential. There's pressure to give big, especially from older relatives. If you show up without contributing, you're quietly judged. If you're part of the inner circle, sibling of the bride, you're expected to help pay for things. And I knew Brooke. She was never going to say the words out loud, but I could already imagine the behind-the-scenes expectation. Austin will help. He has a good job. He owes the family, after all. But I wasn't about to fund another party I wasn't actually welcome at. Not this time. Still, I didn't throw the invitation away. I kept it, pinned it above my desk like a reminder. Because this wedding? This was going to be my stage. I started quietly gathering intel. Not in a creepy way, just observation. Grace was still in touch, and she had no idea what I was planning. She mentioned in passing that the guest list was around 90 people. That mom was helping with the flower arrangements. That the rehearsal dinner was going to be at a fancy downtown restaurant. Invite only. I wasn't invited. Shocking. But she also let something else slip. Something I hadn't expected. Brooke and her fiancé, Connor, were short on money. Apparently, the vineyard venue had jacked up prices last minute due to inflation or some event season surge. Their original quote had ballooned by $6,000, and they were scrambling to cover it. Brooke had told Grace it was under control, but that they'd probably need to lean on the family fund. The family fund. I almost laughed. That was Mom's term, a polite way of referring to the contributions that came from reliable sources in the family. And guess who was always the most reliable source? Yours truly. I was the guy who paid quickly, quietly, without fuss. Until now. The next week, I got a call from my mom. I knew it was coming. I'd been waiting for it. "Hey, sweetie," she said, sugar thick. "Got a minute?" "Sure," I said. I kept my tone polite, even. I wanted her to think everything was fine. She went into small talk at first, asked how work was going, said she missed hearing from me. I let her talk, let her fill the silence. I didn't offer much, just nods and MHMs. Then, finally, she said, "So, I'm sure you got the invitation." I did. "We're so excited," she said quickly, like she was afraid I might shut down the conversation. "Brooke's been planning everything for months. You know how detail-oriented she is. Honestly, she's a natural." "Of course she is." "That's great," I said. There was a pause. Then the real ask came. "I know things have been strained, but I wanted to see if you'd be willing to help out with some of the wedding costs. Just a little bit, nothing crazy." "How much is a little bit?" I asked calmly. "Well, the venue costs went up," she admitted. "And Brooke's really trying to keep things beautiful but reasonable. So if you could contribute, even, say, $2,000, that would really take the pressure off." I almost smiled. The same script, different event. "I'll think about it," I said. She sounded relieved. "Thank you, honey. I knew you'd be mature about this." We hung up. I didn't send $1. Instead, I sent a different kind of message, one she wouldn't see coming. I made a donation, not to the wedding, but to myself. I used part of the money I'd earned from that recent startup project and booked a solo retreat in the mountains. A quiet Airbnb cabin with a view, a fireplace, and no cell reception. The same weekend as the rehearsal dinner. Then I went to a local print shop, made a professional copy of the Turks and Caicos Airbnb receipt, the one from March, with my name as the payer. Underneath it, I printed a simple message in clean, black font. I already paid for one family event this year. I wasn't invited to that one either. This time, I'm keeping my money. I sealed it in a cream envelope, identical to the wedding invitation, and addressed it to my mother's house. Hand-delivered it to her mailbox. No name, no signature, just the receipt. And the truth, I didn't hear back. Not for 3 days. Then I got a message, not a call, from Brooke. "What the hell is this?" No greeting. No punctuation after. Just anger. I didn't reply. She followed up. "You're being so childish. I knew you were mad, but seriously? Mom is crying. Are you happy?" Still, I said nothing. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to explain myself. I wasn't going to give them a script to twist. I was going to let them sit with what they did. Let them explain themselves for once. A week later, I got a call from Grace. She sounded weirdly excited. "Okay, so I don't know what you did," she said. But the family group chat exploded. Apparently, Mom had shown Brooke the envelope, then brought it up in the group chat, asking if anyone else thought Austin's behavior was out of line. Brooke chimed in with her usual theatrics. But then, and this is where it gets interesting, other family members started chiming in too. Noah said he'd always thought it was strange I wasn't at the trip. Mark admitted he didn't realize I'd been cut out entirely. Even our Aunt Linda said, "Well, it does seem unfair, considering he paid for it." The tide was turning, and they didn't know how to control it. That's when I knew I had them. Not with rage, not with drama, with facts, with silence, with boundaries. But I wasn't done yet, because the wedding was still coming, and I had one final move to make. The day of the wedding arrived with the kind of quiet satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. While my mother and sister were likely scrambling between florists and makeup artists at some overpriced vineyard, I was tucked away in a peaceful cabin up north, sipping black coffee on a wooden deck that overlooked a stretch of pine trees glowing gold in the morning sun. No drama, no fake smiles, just the crackle of the wind through the branches and the occasional bird call. It was the first time in a long while that I felt completely free. But don't let the peace fool you. My revenge was already in motion. See, my plan had never been about ruining the wedding. I wasn't that petty. I wasn't going to show up and make a scene or interrupt the vows or post a Facebook rant like a bitter ex. That would have just fed their narrative. Austin's dramatic. Austin's unstable. Austin's jealous. No, my revenge was about control. It was about shifting the story, taking back the narrative they'd stolen and making them confront the reality they'd worked so hard to bury. And to do that, I needed to be precise. 2 weeks before the wedding, I created an email, A simple Gmail address under the name Family Finance 2025 aita. I sent one email to about 30 relatives, mostly extended family who weren't in the Brooke inner circle, but who were still on the guest list. Aunts, uncles, cousins. I made sure not to include my mom, Brooke, or any of her bridesmaids. That wasn't the point. The point was everyone else. The email was short. No bitterness. Just facts. Hi all. Some of you may not be aware, but earlier this year I paid a $4,000 deposit for a family vacation to Turks and Caicos, a trip I was ultimately not invited to. I was told my absence was voluntary. It wasn't. I've since learned that this pattern of exclusion has been ongoing, and I believe it's time people knew the truth. I won't be attending Brooke's wedding. I wish her and Connor the best. Just thought you all deserved to know why I'll be absent. Austin. That was it. No accusations. No name-calling. Just clarity. Something that, for once, they couldn't twist. The fallout began slowly. I started getting quiet texts from second cousins. I had no idea. That's awful. I'm so sorry. A few even said they wouldn't be attending the wedding after all. If family doesn't mean all family, what's the point? One wrote. Another simply said, you deserved better. But the real hit came later, when the whispers started spreading at the rehearsal dinner. According to Grace, who is now feeding me updates like some kind of undercover agent, the conversation around the wine tables wasn't about Brooke's dress or the flower arrangements. It was about me. Apparently, a few people had printed out the email. Others had it on their phones. And the consensus wasn't flattering. How do you forget to invite your own brother? Wait, he paid for the trip and didn't go? Brooke always was a bit calculated. One uncle even told Brooke to her face that excluding me was a stain on an otherwise happy occasion. Brooke, being Brooke, tried to spin it. Said I'd volunteered to stay behind, that I had work conflicts, that I was just overly sensitive. But her voice was shaking, because the story was out of her control now, and she couldn't charm her way out of it. The morning of the wedding, I heard from Grace again. She's freaking out, she said over voice message. Connor's annoyed. Your mom's crying in the bridal suite, and Aunt Linda literally told Brooke she was embarrassed for her. It's a whole thing. I didn't gloat. Not out loud. But inside, it felt like justice. Still, I knew Brooke wouldn't go down without one last move. I was right. 2 days after the wedding, I got a message from her. Congratulations. You turned my wedding into a pity parade. Hope you're proud of yourself. I didn't respond. Then Mom texted. I don't know what you hoped to accomplish with that email. Family doesn't embarrass family like that. That one made me laugh. Family doesn't embarrass family? Like excluding your son from a vacation he paid for isn't embarrassing? I let the silence speak for me. But I wasn't quite finished yet. A week later, I sent one last package. It was addressed to my mom's house, but it was for Brooke. Inside the box was the original Airbnb receipt from the Turks and Caicos trip, a copy of the email I'd sent the family, and a check for $4,000. The memo line read, reimbursement, services not rendered. I wanted nothing from them. No refund. No apology. No fake reconciliation. Just a clean cut. A line in the sand. And I think that's what really broke them. Because people like Brooke and my mother, they thrive on control. On keeping people close enough to use, but never close enough to care. And when someone walks away, calmly, without a fight, they can't spin that. They can't win that. You don't have to burn bridges when you know they're going nowhere worth visiting. That fall, I had my best quarter yet. The startup client renewed their contract and referred me to 2 more. I upgraded my apartment, bought a new espresso machine, took my own vacation to Japan, solo, this time. And it was everything that Turks and Caicos would never have been. Peaceful, honest, mine. Grace and I stayed in touch. She eventually left the family group chat too. Said she was done pretending Brooke was some saint. We're not best friends or anything, but she checks in now and then. Sends me memes. Asks about UX stuff. She even sent a photo of the wedding cake 2 months later with the caption, still doesn't taste like forgiveness. And that's really how this ends. No huge blow-up. No screaming match. Just a clean severance. A reclamation of peace. I didn't need them to say sorry. I just needed them to know I didn't need them anymore. And now they do. Let them toast to family all they want. Some of us are just better off making our own table.